Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 19 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers and follow us on social media / The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie. Use the promo code The Odds Breakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. For $2 more, you can have all that and become a patron subscriber and get the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, what is happening? I'm sure that you're all cooped up in your house because you want to stay safe, healthy, and more important, you don't want to spread the virus to anybody else. And that's a good thing. Hopefully more people do that and we can get our sports back sooner rather than later. But a lot of people are not really concentrating on sports that used to. A lot of people are taking breaks and things like that. And I'm totally cool with people doing that. It is good to take a break and stretch your legs and relax. But what I find fun about sports betting is not necessarily always just placing the bets. A big part of what I do, and probably the most time-consuming thing that I do, is the research. Working on power ratings. Researching teams' movements, players' movements, coaching changes coming into the next year. Been doing a lot of that for football. And yes, I'm not putting as much time as I would be normally there during this time of year. It'd be March Madness right now. I'd be probably just barely starting football Final Four week because you only have 2 games in the Final Four. But it's a nice distraction, so that's why I'm able to talk about things like college football rankings, NFL draft plays, NFL futures, college football games of the year. And we're going to get into some college football games of the year in this episode. Is it going to be perfect? No. Might not even have a ton of plays, but I'm going to give you a lean in every single game for the most part. And I might have a play for you if you want to have the sports books hold on to your money, until October, November, December. That's where most of these games are played when it comes to games of the year. There's probably very few in September. So, gonna do that. Very excited to do that. And that way, I'm staying busy, I'm keeping distracted, and hopefully this whole thing will blow over and we can go back to our normal lives. Before I get into some games of the year, I want to thank some of you subscribers and listeners out there that have reached out to me saying some very kind words. You know who you are. Just hearing that, makes me want to just run to the microphone and try to podcast about something that's interesting. Just really, really love hearing stuff like that. You guys rock. You definitely keep me going. It's just you guys don't have to do stuff like that, and you do. And it just makes you feel great hearing it. So thank you for keeping me going through this tough time. Our handicappers, our guests out there could definitely use some positive thoughts as well. Only source of income for many of them. So it's being completely shut down through at least April, possibly even May. People say worse. Hopefully not. I remain positive. Think that we're going to be back in business in hopefully a month or two. That's what I'm hoping for. So, those people are the ones that are in my mind, and thinking about them the most when it comes to this show. Our friends out there. A couple years ago on this podcast, I think some of you who have been around for a few years here listening to this probably remember, I had a rant about Vegas hotels. I was kind of pissed off about them. I think I wanted them to implode. Well, I take some of that back because there's a lot of great people that work at these establishments and some great people that rely on these establishments. So I never would want it to go down like this, because it's all about the people and how this thing is affecting society. And I just want everybody to get through it great. Now, I still don't feel sorry for the $1 million hotels that have been nickeling and diming us. And I'm talking about the owners, the largest investors, the people that can sweat this thing out, and it won't even matter. They're going to be plenty rich afterwards. And, I mentioned how Vegas changed since 2013-14 when it started getting really commercialized, started charging people for parking, for parking at their casinos where they're already taking their money. When they started charging people super high ATM fees. That's been going on a long time, but they've been getting people like that. When we started seeing resort fees pop up out of nowhere, oh, by the way, your hotel costs an extra $40 a night because we call it a fucking resort fee that you might not even use the pool, especially if it's like February. You might not use the weight room there. Resort fee, my ass. And when these fees started all happening, it was a domino effect because every single freaking place started doing it. Okay? They all started doing it at the same time, realizing they can suck more money. For all the people that benefited from doing that, you can all
kiss my butt.
But hopefully all the people that treated people properly, the people that treated people kindly, the people that worked hard and rely on these places to raise a family, middle-class type people, not people that took advantage upon people. And I'm not saying they all do. You can be rich if you're taking care of people and you're doing the right thing. I want you to get through this too. But all the people that kind of were involved in just taking advantage of people, I don't feel sorry for you. Obviously, I didn't expect anything to happen this quickly. I still think they're going to bounce back. I don't think it's going to cause them to close. But you don't know what's going to happen next year. And if America does slide into a recession, or even worse, a depression, which is basically just a recession on steroids, who knows what's going to happen? There's a lot of hotels there that it's going to remain empty. So hopefully we can bounce back and I'll get back to work and keep having fun. And let's also hope that for the time being that everybody remains safe. All right, let's get into some games of the year for some college football. And so these obviously are something to bet on, but you know that you can't get paid on them for a while. Only do it if you're okay with them holding it. There's some value. There's definitely some value, but for me, I need a little bit of extra value if I want them to hold on to some money, because even the perfect bet sometimes doesn't hit. You could be 95% right and still lose. I mean, that's how teams that are favored by 23 points lose. That's how Syracuse, when they beat Clemson, They were 24-point dogs. It happens once in a while. You could have the most perfect bet in the world and it could still lose. So that's why I don't love the sports books holding on to my money. But, if you have a good feel on it and the point spread's way off by your power rating, then sometimes it's nice to have a little bankroll just for that itself. But I'm going to give you some leans. I'm going to kind of go over these lines. Now, these are my ideas here are definitely subject to change because things can happen throughout the summer. I could like a game even more than I did before, or I can even like it less than I did before, or in extreme circumstances, I can actually like the other side than I did here in March, here in early April. So you never know what's going to happen. But for the most part, I have information on returning production. I have information on recruiting classes. I have information on coaching changes. I have information on percentage of players were underclassmen, percentage of players were seniors of who started the year before. I have the history of information on how they played with some of these players. And I have their upcoming schedule. So a lot of things going for you in college football before obviously the NFL comes out. The NFL, you still have a whole draft to come out, right? A whole draft of new people that could change things. Trades happen in the draft. I mean, what if a key person gets traded? Right? What if another DeAndre Hopkins deal goes through? That things can change in the NFL more or less. In college, things are pretty much set. So it's fun to do this. I'm going to use the Bet Online numbers right now because I think they have the most up. Maybe there's better ones. You can tweet at me or tweet at the Odds Breakers if you have some better games of the year lines. But we'll start right out here using these. It's funny how they call it games of the year. I mean, games of the year, like Florida State versus Boise State's really a game of the year. I mean, are you going to be tuning in to that game over like a Texas game or something, or over like a Alabama game? I mean, as a sports bettor, if you bet on it, you would. But it's just kind of funny that they call these games of the year, right? You have Michigan versus Washington. Yeah, I mean, it's a good game. It's not. Doesn't feel like the name game of the year. Minnesota versus Iowa. Yeah, I mean, it's a good Big Ten game. Big Ten West game. Oh, and check this one out. Mississippi at Baylor. Yeah. That's a game of the year.
Unreal.
But anyways, at least we have some lines out there. And at least we have something to bet on. So I'm going to cover about half of these today. Do the half of them either next week or the following week. And obviously, like I said before, these are subject to change. The first one that I want to get into is a basketball school versus Clemson. Syracuse versus Clemson. Wow, were they bad last year. I think they were 2-6 in conference against the spread. I had them in the negatives in the power rankings last year. Literally the negatives. The reason that they're a basketball school is because if you look at their recruiting from 2017, 2018, 2019, not once did they have a top 50 recruiting class. That's not good. That is certainly not good when you're in the same division as Clemson. They're minus 8.5 points in an easy ACC. Now they return 4 people on defense, 4 starters on defense. And they return like 7 on offense. They lose their skill positions and 1 offensive lineman. They keep their quarterback, who wasn't that great last year. Dino Babers, now the coach, has new coordinators. Hopefully that helps. But Tommy DeVito, we'll see if he improves. He's definitely going to have to improve. But I actually downgraded Syracuse. And now they have to go to Clemson. And they're a 38.5 point dog on the supposed game of the year. 38.5 is the spread. Okay. Going by my power ratings, Clemson, obviously I covered them a couple weeks ago. I told you that Their loss of production was similar to Ohio State, but not terrible. Great recruiting classes. Higgins and Simmons will have to be replaced. ETN staying, but this is also Clemson. You know, on a neutral field, I have Clemson a 29.5-point favorite, and they're going to be playing at home, where the home field advantage is probably about 3 to 4 points. So just right off the bat, I have it at 33.5. Okay? 33.5 point spread. Syracuse was the team a couple years ago that have actually given Clemson some hiccups, right? Beat them once, almost beat them another time. I think twice out of the last 4 years or whatever it was. Maybe, I think last year Clemson took care of them. But how am I supposed to bet when I already have the spread at 33.5? And this game of the year line is 38.5. It's not like I have a bunch of great value to bet on Syracuse. How Syracuse could be worse this year. I downgrade them a couple points. But even though I'm about 5 points off here, the number's so great, it means the variance is a lot more. So I can't bet it. But that's the first one I wanted to cover. And the lean is, unfortunately, Syracuse, but certainly something I'm not going to bet. Next one is Navy versus Notre Dame. And the cool thing about this is you don't have to wait so long to get your money here because it's the first game of the year. Obviously, if it doesn't get postponed, but the first game of the year, August 29th. Notre Dame is at home, and they are a 13.5 point advantage here. So, looking at Notre Dame, we already discussed them last week. Lost a lot on defense. Still has some good talent, good receiving. Their quarterback, Ian Book, is back, which is very, very important here, obviously. Looking at Navy, I had to downgrade them in my power ratings. Okay? They were pretty good last year, if you remember, in the American Athletic Conference. I think they just barely lost to Memphis. It was a weird game. And then they did very well throughout the rest of the season. Right? You saw them kick the shit out of Army in the Army-Navy game last year. But, they lost to Memphis, and their only other hiccup was a bad game at Notre Dame. And somehow they get stuck going to Notre Dame again. And Notre Dame is a 13.5 point favorite. Okay. What's different? Navy did beat Kansas State in their bowl game by 3 points, though, but still they beat them. Well, I'll tell you what's different. Navy lost Malcolm Perry. That's not good. Malcolm Perry was like literally all they had. He was awesome. And they had some good blocking. But Malcolm Perry was the guy that couldn't get tackled by a bunch of, 2-star guys and less, right? Walk-ons. They were playing a lot of easy colleges. And now Navy only returns 50% of their production on offense and 66% of their production on defense. They rank 87. That's not good for smaller schools because none of their recruits are that good. And unless they have another really good running quarterback, I had to downgrade Navy down from 7.5 to, I believe, 3 points. I have Notre Dame pretty high at 16 points, better than the average team. So, if you do the math, Notre Dame should be favored by 16 points, better than 13.5. So, I have a very strong lean to Notre Dame here. I didn't bet it yet, but I have no problem if you bet this because I think this spread is going to go to about 17 points by the start of the season. I actually still might bet this one. So, it only went past, really, the key number of 14. Didn't get past 17, right? My spread is 16. Navy's still a good team. They'll remember how they get their butts kicked last year. So, but no, I think Notre Dame should be favored by 17 points here. Next game, Georgia versus Alabama. Georgia +7, -115. In Alabama, you can get at +104. Looks like these odds are more of the 5 juice, -105 for one over 100 rather than -110. So that's nice that BetOnline's doing that, because Alabama LSU's next at -108 to -102. So very nice of BetOnline there. They don't charge you as much juice to get some action, probably because they're trying to get some bets. Georgia versus Bama. Well, I got to tell you, 7 points in Alabama. That's pretty interesting. What's nice for Bama is they get Georgia early, September 19th, and they get them between Georgia State and Kent State. Okay? They start out at home against USC, then they get Georgia State at home, then they get Georgia at home, then Kent State at home. Wouldn't exactly call that a sandwich spot. But that's Bama. That's how they schedule. They're smart. They schedule to their advantage. Works out for them. And that's why they're always in the playoffs. Now, they lost Tua. But in my mind, that offense was just part of it. Part of the greatness of Alabama's offense was the change of offense. Kind of since Lane Kiffin was there. Kind of started moving up a little bit, right? Tua came in. Jalen Hurts was there, and he was pretty good, but you can see the offense moving forward. Then Tua comes in and just explodes it. So, good for Alabama. Looks like Steve Sarkisian's still their offensive coordinator. Pete Golding's their defensive coordinator still. Bama ranks number 88th in returning production, 55% on offense, 60% on defense. Well, it's Bama. They have the best recruiting. No big deal. Reload. Bama's looking good. They're second on my power ratings, second best team. They got Mac Jones, Tagovailoa, and Bryce Young competing. Younger Tagovailoa, I forgot his first name. Not worried about them. Najee Harris is returning. They're going to be very good, but Georgia's recruiting classes have been actually kind of better. But Georgia lost a QB as well in Jake Fromm, and their second QB is not nearly as experienced as some of the Bama ones I went over. Tua was hurt. Mac Jones played. There's some reps to Tagovailoa. I'm not worried for them. I'm a little bit more worried about Georgia here. Jamie Newman coming from Wake Forest. Played in the fastest offense. Now he's going to an offense from Todd Monken from Southern Miss that ranked 82nd in pace. Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator at Georgia. And Wake Forest was number 1 in pace. I'm concerned for that. Now, power rating wise, I have Alabama 6 points better than Georgia. And this game is in Alabama, so this spread should be 9. But Georgia's juiced at -115 at 7. I think I definitely lean Alabama at -7, but it's not like it's going through a key number. So I'm going to wait this one out. Very hard lean to Alabama. Next one is Alabama at LSU, and Alabama is -3 at -108. LSU a +3 home dog. This game is late in the season. November 7th. Alabama goes to Tennessee, and then they go to LSU. So I don't love the scheduling spot here. Second road game in a row is something that you do not love to bet on. It's kind of a drag. LSU was the champ last year. They're going to have this game circled. But LSU also lost a ton, and I had to downgrade them as far as I could, and I only got them down to number 10th on my power ratings, even though this was the biggest downgrade I ever had. 17.5 points. So you got LSU at 17, and you have Alabama at 26. So I actually have Alabama at LSU, if you give LSU a 3-point home field advantage, 6 points. Spread should be 6, not 3. But am I excited to lay 6 points? Or sorry, to lay 3 points at LSU this early? No. Not really. Not really. And maybe LSU is a little bit better than I thought. You know, the recruiting class is always damn good. They lost Joe Brady at offensive coordinator. You know, they lost Joe Burrow, the best quarterback, at least the best one-year quarterback we've ever seen in college football. Ton of production. You know, ton of production. But they're kind of reloady. They can reload like Alabama. So, got to add some back for that. Going from 3 to 6 isn't that exciting to me. So, you know, if this spread goes to 2.5, then I'll play Alabama. But at 3, we'll wait it out. Next game, we have Texas versus Oklahoma State. Texas is a 2-point dog at Oklahoma State. And you know I'm a little bit higher on Texas this year. New coordinators for Tom Herman. This game is at the very end of the season. Last game of the season, Texas at Oklahoma State, after they get Iowa State. I'm kind of high on Oklahoma State this year. Okay? Kind of high on them. Not crazy high on them, but they were pretty good last year. They're better than I thought last year, let's say. But I have them ranked number 20. They have very good returning production, ranking 9th in the nation. They have a new offensive coordinator in Casey Dunn. I don't think it's going to affect that much, in my opinion. You know, this has always been Mike Gundy's team for offense. But returning 80%, 86% production on defense, their defense wasn't great last year, but it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. Their point differential in conference was 0. They're a positive 5.7 points for the full season. It's pretty good. Positive in yards, 5-4 record. They were pretty good against the spread here too. 9-3 against the spread. Their defense was decent. They were 5-8 over under, so 8 unders, 5 overs. Pretty good. The recruiting class, I mean, it's not like Oklahoma's. They're Oklahoma's little brother, but they're in 30s every for the 3 years here. I upgraded Oklahoma State. I gave them 3.5 points higher for just the great returning production, consistency. Spencer Sanders returning at quarterback. They can score against anybody in the Big 12. So now they're playing a Texas team that I'm also kind of high on. But I have Texas 6 points better. Roughly 6.25 points better. Texas has got to go there, which means the spread should be about 3. And this number is Texas plus 2. I have it spread at about 3.25. Yeah. Not really. Not running to the window. But it's kind of nice to see that my spreads are somewhat close here. Kind of shows that I'm on the same page as what Vegas is doing at least. So, I like that. Next game, Stanford versus USC. And this game should be at Stanford. And it is Mid-season. Well, no, it's earlier. It's the third game of the season. USC at Stanford. And no sandwich for USC. They just have New Mexico beforehand and then Arizona State afterwards, which Arizona State is improved, as we know, with Hermie out there. So looking at USC, I like USC this year. I think USC is going to win the Pac-12 South. I have them number 14 in my power ratings. They had a top 4 recruiting class in 2020, which is great. Great returning production, ranking 5th in the nation. Kendon Slovis is a very good young quarterback. Offensive coordinator Graham Harrell probably saved Clay Helton's job.
So hot right now.
I like what USC is doing. USC recruiting class 4th in 2017. USC was 4th in 2018. And USC was 19th in 2019. Well, I care more about 17, 18 really than 19 personally. So, USC's going to be good. They're going to be good. Stanford, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. Stanford, good returning production, consistency at quarterback, coaches and coordinators. I think Mills is their quarterback. Top 20 recruiting 2 of the last 3 years. That's not bad. Top 20. But is David Mills going to improve? Because this team sucked last year. Okay? They lost their 4 last games in the Pac-12. I had them at 1.5 points better than the average team last year finishing. I'm skeptical with David Shaw. I've always been skeptical with him. So, this could be his get up year, but it's looking to me like this could be a really bad year. You know, returning production, Stanford, and this is all according to Bill Connolly. He does a fantastic job. He's now with ESPN. He used to be with SB Nation. So, Bill Connolly has Stanford ranking 28th. But this team was so bad, I don't know if that's good. I had to upgrade him from the recruiting and the consistency, but I only have him at 5.5 points, better than the average team, while USC is at 15 points better than the average team. So on a neutral field, 9.5 points better. At Stanford, 6.5 points better. Spread, USC by 6.5 at Stanford, minus 115. Absolutely no value there for me to play this game, at least not right now. Sorry. Florida State versus Boise State, and this is one I think I finally might have a play for you here. I have a big difference of opinion on Florida State coming into this season than ESPN's FPI. ESPN's FPI has Florida State the 23rd best team. I have Florida State, the 50th best team. I don't know how you can bring them up so high when they have brand new coaches and brand new coordinators. They have returning production with James Blackman, but he's still James Blackman. I don't think he fits Mike Norvell's offense. And by the way, Mike Norvell was fantastic at Clemson, and he's going to do some very good things, especially for the offense at Florida State. You know, you're going to see a fast-paced, spread offense with a lot of gimmick plays. It's going to be a lot like Cliff Kingsbury was, you know. He also knows how to run the ball very well with misdirections, you know, good counters. Mike Norvell is a great coach, but I just can't see him turning it over day one, you know. I expect a more dynamic offense, but that's going to be later. This is more of like an early fade team than get the hell on them later. The recruiting's been solid over the years, but they've always, Willie Taggart, even him, always been in the top 20 recruiting. But a lot of those guys left, and I don't know, a lot of those numbers haven't been adjusted. So I have Florida State, 4.25 points better than the average team. And I have Boise State 5.75 points better than the average team. This is at Boise State. So this should be a 4.5 point spread on their little Smurf turf. Now, this is a revenge game for Florida State, but really, is it revenge? I mean, a lot of these players are different, right? Florida State, returning production-wise, 63% on offense, 83% on defense. Is that good when their defense was that bad last year? New coordinators, maybe. Memphis had a decent defense for the American Athletic Conference. It wasn't by any means great, but wasn't terrible. But I don't know how this could be a pick 'em at Boise State, even with the talent that they've recruited, because Boise State, it's hard to play there, and they've just been a force in the Mountain West. They're the best team in the Mountain West. Now, don't get me wrong, Boise State has a lot of problems themselves. Hank Bachmeier, that's his name. Has some quarterback experience from last year when Jalen Henderson missed some games. Medium returning production, no top 50 recruiting classes. So can Brian Harrison keep this train going? That's the question. Can Brian Harrison, the coach, maybe, but it's their first game of the year that they get to play Florida State, right? I could be saying that wrong, so I'm going to look it up right now. No, it's the third game of the year. So that makes it more questionable, I guess. But ESPN has this. Probably Florida State should be a favorite. I have Boise State by 4.5. The spread is pick 'em. So this is a small play for me. This is probably the one that I'm going to play as a free play. I didn't give it out to premium members or anything. I'm going to take Boise State small for a star, but I don't want to get too invested in this game.
And so then I got a call from him saying, we don't have to worry about money no more. And I said, that's good. One less thing.
Here's another amazing game of the year. We have BYU at Utah. And BYU is just one of those teams that they're not the same BYU as obviously in the years ago. They're never in the top 50 for recruiting. They're not. I think their coach, Kalani Sadaki, is an absolute dipshit when it comes to game management. He blew his bowl game against Hawaii, just absolutely blew it. I mean, he just blows games. He just makes stupid decisions, The thing that they have going for them is that Zach Wilson, their quarterback, is still playing. Okay. They actually have a lot of quarterbacks there. But Zach Wilson had the most games. 2,382 yards, 62.4%. Not terrible. 11 TDs, 9 interceptions. He'll be starting again. They have decent returning production, ranking in the 40s, but like I said, they can't recruit. And I think they actually lost a little bit more on defense. I had to downgrade them a point. Not much from last year. But the big thing is Utah. Really. That's what it is. Because Utah, remember how close they were making the college football playoff, and they blew it. They absolutely blew it and got their butts kicked by Oregon that last game, that Pac-12 championship game. They rank dead last in returning production at a total of 37%. They lose their QB and just a ton of players. They have no recruiting class that ranks over 33rd the last 3 years. Can their defense step up this year? I don't know. This game is always has BYU and Utah fans at it, but this game will be in Utah, and Utah has a good home field advantage in general. Okay. So my line here, 9.5 points. I downgraded Utah from 17.25 points to 9.5 points. Maybe my second biggest behind LSU, second biggest adjustment from 2019 to 2020 was Utah. Going down roughly 8 points in the power ratings. But they're still better than BYU by about 4.75 points, in my opinion. I'll give them 3 for home court advantage because there's going to be some BYU home court, still basketball. Home field advantage, I'm going to give them 3 points because there'll still be BYU people there, which makes this spread about 8 points, 7.75 points. So the spread that I'm seeing on this game of the year line is 6.5. So I'm off by 1.25 points, but in between a key number. No juice on this one. This one, I'm going to have to leave it alone because Utah could be worse than it looks. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave this one alone. It's a huge rivalry game. I usually like taking the dogs in those. So, unfortunately, no play for that one. The next game we have is the Florida Gators versus LSU. And I don't want to sound too redundant here, and I cover these teams. Florida's looking good in my power ratings. I have Florida, the 6th best team, right behind Georgia, right ahead of Wisconsin, 18.5 points better than the average team. But yet I still have LSU at 17 points better than the average team, so this spread should be 4.5. And LSU is 3-point dogs at Florida. So spread's 3, not 4.5. Not a huge difference there. I'm okay with waiting for this one. This game, Kyle Trask is still the quarterback there. The game is the 6th game of the season. Florida will have South Carolina before that. And this will be a big game. I'd probably be looking to be on South Carolina before this. I think Florida wants this game. They played LSU tough last year. They're going to want to win this. LSU lost all those players, but 1.5 points when we don't even know what LSU is going to be is not enough for me. So, going to have to pass on that one. Next game, we have Texas at Oklahoma. And I got to tell you, Texas, already talked a little bit about them, but I do love Sam Ehlinger returning as quarterback there. I think this is a team maybe to be on early. And is this the year that they can finally take Oklahoma? I have Oklahoma by 1.5 points. This is a neutral type game. Neutral atmosphere. The Red River rivalry. So, the spread that they're giving us is Oklahoma by 3.5. And I have Oklahoma by 1.5. Texas is juiced at minus 115 at 3.5. That is probably worth a play. But I'm only going to give it out as a lean right now just because lots of changes with both these teams. Lots of changes with Oklahoma. Texas actually returns a lot. Sam Ehlinger, as you know, comes back. It's not often where you see a Texas team ranking 21st in returning production when their recruiting's been this good over the years. But they always seem to fail. So it drives you nuts, right? Drives you nuts. 2 offensive and defensive coordinators, new, coming in here. Tom Herman ain't messing around here. Chris Ash was very successful on defense, before becoming a Rutgers coach. 82% of their defense is coming back for Texas, but can they be better is the question. What if they lose to LSU? How are they going to feel about playing Oklahoma here? I haven't pressed the button yet to play, but I lean Texas here. Oklahoma lost Jalen Hurts and CeeDee Lamb. They have some uncertainty. They do bring back a lot of offensive line. The defense should improve, but they do return 70% production. I trust Lincoln Riley. That's my problem here. I really do trust him. Obviously, how can you not? What he's done every single year. But I think this is just Texas's year. So the 3.5 almost looks playable. There's a lot of time yet. I'm not going to cry if I don't play it, if I don't get my minus 110 instead of minus 115. So I'm going to wait on this one too a little bit, but this is a strong lean to Texas for me. Iowa versus Ohio State. And I broke down Ohio State. They are my best team, my number one power-rated team at 31.5 points. Better than the average team. We saw Iowa a few years back beat Ohio State, shock them. Iowa lost a ton of production, not great recruiting, new QB. I had to downgrade Iowa 4 points down to 9 points. This game, I believe, will be at Iowa here. And I'll check Ohio State's schedule right now. It's at Ohio State. Okay. So, looking at the spread, this should be 22.5 on a neutral field and 25.5 minimum at Ohio State. That's a big spread for a Big Ten game, especially when it's Iowa, right? Iowa can slow it down on you. How the hell am I so off on this game from this spread? I'm about 9 points off. It's 14.5. I'm 11 points off. So that's what I'm wondering. How am I so off on this? Even using last year's ESPN's FPI numbers, Iowa's 15, Ohio State is 33.7. I mean, that's like 19 points right there. Add 3 for home field. That's like 22 points favorite. And Iowa lost more than Ohio State. Ohio's at only 14 points. So this has to be a play. I have to play it. And it's at minus 120. But, you have to go by your power rating sometimes. You see 14 in the hook. I believe it's a sucker play. Trying to get some Iowa action on this one. I can see this one closing possibly at 20 points. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have Iowa ranked 22. But Ohio State just happens to have a ton of people. The recruiting class is awesome. Justin Fields is still there. Ryan Day is still their coach. And they're coming in pissed off. It's not like this is a sandwich game. Iowa's got Rutgers before this. And they have Michigan State after this. They're not going to be really looking ahead to Michigan State after last year's debacle.
That's terrible.
So, we're going to play this one for a couple stars. Ohio State, minus 14.5 against Iowa. Sounds crazy. That's where we're at. Next game. And by the way, this is going to get a little faster because I explained a lot of these teams in these games of the year. We have Notre Dame versus Stanford. And Notre Dame is a 10-point favorite here. Notre Dame usually plays Stanford. Usually it's pretty late, but this game is at Notre Dame. And it's a lot earlier. Notre Dame, as you know, I have as 16 points better than the average team. Stanford, pretty low on Stanford. 5.5 points better than the average team. So Notre Dame should be a 13.5 point spread. So we're looking at going from 10 to 13.5. There's no key number you're passing right there. You're getting off a key number here. I mean, 13 is kind of key. It's not. I mean, it's probably maybe the 8th or 9th most probable number out there. You know, it's not like a 4. It's not like 14. Not even like 17. But it's a strong lean for me to say Notre Dame right now. Unless David Shaw pulls something out of his ass. But I'm going to wait on this one as well. Alabama versus USC. First game of the season. Don't have to wait as long. Alabama is a 14-point favorite against USC. How are they going to come out looking? If Mac Jones is their quarterback, they'll have a little bit more experience, kind of similar to Slovis over at USC, as you know. Man, I wonder if USC remembers getting their asses stomped last time they tried this at Alabama. You know, I wonder. But right now, I have Alabama exactly a 14-point favorite over USC, 11 points on a neutral field. So I completely agree with this line. But at the same time, I don't like how Alabama's defense was last year, but they're also hurt. So kind of coming back around here. This spread is right, and there's absolutely no reason to play it right now. Next game, Texas A&M versus the Auburn Tigers. I covered about a bit about Auburn last time we talked. Last time we talked about college, that is. Auburn is my 4th best team. Most intriguing. Bo Nix. Decent returning production. Great recruiting classes. Texas A&M. They going to do it this year? I upgraded them a lot. 5.25 points. If you combine returning production with recruiting, Texas A&M is the best results in the SEC from that. In recruiting, returning production, 80% on offense. Kellen Mond, their quarterback, is back. 74% on defense. Is this the year that Jimbo Fisher pulls another big year like he did with Jameis Winston in Florida State? That's a good question. I mean, Texas A&M, they're recruiting 13th in 2017. Texas A&M was 17th in 2018. And Texas A&M was 4th in 2019. I had to upgrade them a bit. I still don't think the players were all that great, but maybe they get better. You know? Maybe they get better. They beat Oklahoma State last year. I didn't like the officiating that bowl game. They barely beat them by 3 points. But looking at my power ratings on how I have this game, I have Auburn a 5.5 better on a neutral field. And this spread is Auburn by 3. Auburn had that terrible bowl game against Minnesota. They lost by 7 points after they beat Alabama in November. I mean, they were losing to Georgia 21-0. They were coming back. Didn't quite have enough time. Lost by 7. LSU, they lost by 3 points at LSU. They returned some decent production here. Not a ton of defense, unfortunately, but they returned some good offense here. and their quarterback. They're 60% about both. So I don't know how the hell Texas A&M jumped ahead of them in ESPN's, right? I mean, if you look at Auburn, their year was better last year. Gus Malzahn is looked at as a very good coach. They have a new offensive coordinator in Chad Morris. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, has kind of been sinking over the years lately. Auburn was a healthy 9-4 ATS last year. Texas A&M was decent at 7-6. Auburn's point differential in the conference was 27 points. Sorry, 8 points. 27. I was like 27. 27 yards per game better and 8.8 points better. Texas A&M was negative 21.6 yards and negative 2.7 points. They're going to improve that much. So this game is essentially a pick 'em on a neutral. Yet I have Auburn 5.5 points better. This spread should be past 7, not -3. So this would be another play for me. Auburn would be a play for me about 2 stars.
You're fired.
Next game, we have Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. Talked about these teams already. Oklahoma, 17.5 points better. Oklahoma State, 9.75 points better. Hell, you can round it to 7.5. This game, Oklahoma, and the spread is 8.5. Spread should be 10.5, according to my power ratings. Yet the spread is 8.5 at plus 107. It's pretty close there. One key number. I'm about 2 points off the spread. Not quite enough for me. I'm going to give a lean to Oklahoma here. But then again, Oklahoma is going to have a new quarterback, new skill positions, and maybe some improved defense. So we'll see where that's going to be at. Next game, we have Ohio State at Penn State. This game's at Penn State, but guess what? Ohio State does not get the whiteout. Ohio State requested it to not have the whiteout, which means the late night game, which gives Penn State an extra 2 to 3 points home field advantage. Ohio State is only favored by 3. This game is always close, it seems. No matter how much my power ratings are different, this is always close. I mean, I'm high on Penn State. They're my 8th best team. But it's still, Ohio State is still about 15 points better. Okay? I actually have them at about 13.75 points better. That's what I have them at. 13.75 points. So this should be about a 9-point spread in Happy Valley. And it's a 3-point spread. I am completely off on Ohio State compared to where BetOnline has these. I already took one of them against the Iowa game. I'd rather take them at home rather than take them in Penn State. Strong lean to Ohio State at -3. I'm not going to be taking it. At least not right now. Maybe right before the season starts, I would consider taking it and then buy back, because I'm sure Ohio State will go up to maybe a 6-point favorite or 7 in Happy Valley. But I'm going to wait a little bit. The next game we have Florida versus Georgia, and you know this is the neutral field in Jacksonville, Florida. About 50-50 with our audience. Our buddy Brian Edwards loves this game because he loves his Gators. 2.5-point spread here. I mean, I have Florida my 6th best team and Georgia my 5th best team. Georgia is 20. Florida's about 18.5 better. So I have Georgia 1.5. When this line says Georgia is 2.5. So gonna pass on this game right now. Gonna pass on it. But I'll tell you, if it's the end of the year, I would think that maybe Georgia has the shot, that Florida has the shot to win the SEC East rather than Georgia, because Florida has a much easier schedule. Georgia's got to play Auburn and Alabama. Florida doesn't. So just my little 2 cents on that. And this is the final game for the podcast today. We're going to do the next half either next week or the week after. We have Nebraska at Ohio State. Ohio State is minus 16 points here. This is in Ohio State. Another situation here where I'm sure I'm going to be way off because I have Ohio State a lot higher, it seems, than other people. This road for Nebraska. After they play Rutgers, they have to play at Ohio State, then home against Penn State, then at Iowa, then at Wisconsin, and then home against a much improved Minnesota team. Look at the end of that schedule right there. Brutal. Holy cow. But anyways, this is on Halloween, October 31st. Nebraska goes to Ohio State here. I didn't cover Nebraska yet, and I wanted to wait on this because I hate to say it, but this might be the year that I'm on Nebraska for some plays, if not even a season win total, if I can get something around 7.5 maybe. But that is a really bad end of the season there. They'll get 1 or 2 of those. This Nebraska team is just very... They have a lot of upside this year with Scott Frost. This is finally the year that his recruits are playing. Year 3, right? And their defense has been terrible. They only returned 59% of their defense, but that's probably a good thing because everyone could score on them last year, not named Maryland. They have a lot of upside. But is Taylor Martinez going to be better? Is he going to be a better quarterback this year for Scott Frost? If so, and they can have somewhat of a defense here, improved by 8 points a game, 9 points a game, this would be a lot like the 2017 Central Florida hype team. That's what they can be. That's their upside. But they still have the downside of absolute suckage again. I had to upgrade them for the recruiting and how good they recruited under Frost. It keeps going up. It was in the 30s and 20s. Not sure if they got to the teens. 17, in 2019. They passed teams like Wisconsin. 23 in 2018. So they're recruiting very well. So I upgraded them to 11.5 points better than the average team, but Ohio State is still 21 points better than them. 20.5 plus their home field advantage is 24.5. I mean, to be honest with you, I have Nebraska a little bit better than Iowa because of returning their quarterback and returning their production. So I think this is the year that Nebraska's going to just boom, or they're just going to bust again and everyone's going to run all over them. So Ohio State, even though it's a 6-point spread, I'm not going to take them. I'm just going to take them in one game of the year. Strong lean to Ohio State. That's all the time we have, my friends. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, if you enjoy the podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe, whether it be on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get this podcast. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Stay healthy. Try to be kind to your family. And go get some